Sox in the basement.
Welcome into another episode of Sox in the Basement. My name is Chris Lanuti. Larry Hawley is next to me. Now, this is a guy for 3 decades has been covering sports all around the country, but for a long time here in Chicago, and we're going to sit down and have a conversation here at Cork and Kerry at the park, 33rd and Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark, your place for pregame, postgame, in-game viewing, award-winning burgers, ballpark favorites, the spirit, the wine selection, the taps. They're constantly rotating. You get the favorites, and you also get some of your craft breweries from around Chicago, and it is going to be a great season out here watching the White Sox. Make sure that you get to the Cork before the game, after the game, whenever you want to enjoy it, and check out Southside Irish Parade at the original location, 106th and Western. That is going to be a party. You will see me there coming up this Sunday. See it all at corkandkerry.com. Larry, how are you?
I am wonderful and happy to be back at Cork and Kerry. I've been here a number of times after Sox games. I love the vibe. Just enjoy good selection of beer, good people. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's awesome. I got nervous doing that introduction because you're a pro. That's the thing. You're a pro, and I was like, man, I don't want to screw this thing up because since I've done the podcasting thing, I used to broadcast radio. I would have never felt that way, but since I do the podcast thing now, I get a little I want to be still taken a little seriously. And I had a WGN guy here sitting next to me.
I mean, it sounded fun to me.
Okay, good.
It sounded like you knew. It sounded like you've been here a lot, so I got no problem with it. You're all good. So.
We're gonna talk some Sox. We're gonna talk some sports. We're gonna talk about what it's like to cover sports here in Chicago. I think it's a mistake if we don't bring up our history. Yeah. I was the morning radio host at WPGU in Champaign-Urbana when you started, because you got to Champaign in 98.
Yep.
So I'm already there. I think I go number 1 in that town probably 2 months after you've gotten in the town, and you joined the radio station. Yep. We were talking beforehand. We did cross paths a few times, but I was working those morning hours. I was exhausted, and life was crazy. But that's one of the craziest times in my life. What are your memories of those years at PGU?
Well, I remember, first of all, how friendly you were and how friendly a lot of people were, because at that point I was just getting into media. So I did the Daily Illini. I was a reporter. Starting out with men's tennis and wrestling. I got lucky that wrestling beat Iowa for the first time in 40 years when I was there, and men's tennis was really good. But I remember everybody was friendly there. That's the point in your life where you have this dream of being a broadcaster, and now you get the chance to actually try to do it. And I really appreciated, how friendly you were. And I saw you here and there, and I knew obviously about you. You had a really wonderful program. People really enjoyed it. No, people talked about it, and you were a big deal in the community because people knew about it. And I always said, morning radio is adventurous, it's courageous, and it's creative. And
I got suspended while you were there. I think my suspension happened when you first got there.
I think it might.
I got suspended in the fall of '98 for 2 weeks. And I came back even bigger. The suspension got me in the paper, and I think that's what got us in the first place, is because all of a sudden everybody wanted to know, what did this guy say? And then I was just really good at milking that. So it kind of worked out really well. You start off in Champaign. You're really fortunate in terms of the fact that the Illini start doing some really great things. You're covering Illini sports, and then you parlay it into time at one of the stations down in Champaign, so you get your start there. Some people leave college. I left and ran off to Wheeling, West Virginia, Reno, Nevada, Southern California. I was all over the place. You stayed there first. Did the Illini winning make it a little bit easier for you to get your foot in the door at that time?
Well, it certainly made it more fun.
Yeah.
I think I was lucky. I saw a football Big Ten championship. I have incredible fortune, and I still have the shirt. I think I've worn it twice. It still has the sticker on it, so it's there. I would like to think that I had a pretty hard work ethic, and I would like to think that did it. I'm sure the Illini winning allowed me to go cover more, get more experiences, and it's a reps in the batting cage thing.
It also gets you you get to experience the highs and the lows, right? Otherwise, it's got to be drab. I always think about these beat reporters for the White Sox, and when they're terrible, or when there's really no hope. How do you get through 162 games? It's got to get the juices flowing a little bit when you got a team that's contending.
And I remember, there's a few moments. Basketball was always was kind of rising up. My freshman year, I don't know if you remember, Corey Bradford was young. Frank Williams didn't play.
Right.
And they were kind of, Sergio was there. Marcus and Frank joined the next year. Sean Harrington was a freshman. So they were on the up and up. But football was really interesting because they were really struggled. I got there the year after 0-11. And then in 1999, they start 3-0, then lose 3 straight. They lost to Minnesota on homecoming 37-7. And then they beat Michigan. That's the first time I always remember. And just the energy off of that, and they carried that to go to a bowl game, then won the MicronPC.com Bowl. That's an interesting bowl.
That was down in New Orleans?
It was down in Miami. Down in Miami.
You went to New Orleans though eventually,
yes,
right?
2 years later.
Because I was told you crashed the radio station van while you were there.
That is very true. That is true. That happened. That's an interesting.
I was told by a mutual friend.
Yes.
Make sure you bring up the fact that he drove the Planet van. It was 1071. The Planet was WPGU. You drove the van down to New Orleans and got into a car accident.
Yeah, and it was a tough moment, but it was all that was a great experience. So I mean, that's all like you learn the good, you learn the bad, and I had a great fortune to have had what I had. I think I tried to work harder. I was not the best writer, and I had my own kind of self-conscious stuff, going up but challenging myself, and so a lot of it was learning how to deal with even adversity, learning how to go outside of myself because I was always a shy person. And it was all those challenges that I met in the days of the Daily Illini, the days of WPGU, and the days I interned at WICD-TV. I was a videographer intern from middle of my sophomore year on.
Yeah.
So I think that broadcasting, I've always thought, what if I didn't go into broadcasting? What would my life have looked like? And I think I would not have grown as a person nearly as much. So those experiences at the Daily Illini, those experiences at the Planet, at the TV station, and having the fortune, the fortune to have had those things happen allowed me to have those experiences and kick off a professional career. The good, the great moments of those days, and of course the van, the bad things, and all that would go with it. All of those kind of encompassed into making the experience and allowing me to have a professional career in something I dreamed about.
I want to get into the Sox here, and I want to talk covering Chicago sports, but before we get into the meat of that, I am curious your thoughts on this. I have been in the opinion, my radio career ended by choice. I had moved up to larger markets every time, but then I was also getting married. I wanted to start a family, and I felt like I was still several years away from getting to Chicago, all right? And I had an opportunity. I probably could end up going to Columbus, Ohio, or I got a call from Minneapolis, but I wasn't making it to Chicago, and it was time for me to go home. So I chose to leave. But I do feel like if I would have hung in there a little bit longer, eventually I'd get here. And I see that people who are young who want to get in the media, especially people ask me this question, well, where do I go to school, and then what do I do to just be on in Chicago? You did the same route as me. Yeah. You didn't go to Chicago right away, even though you're from here. You went and did the small towns and worked your way up. How many different places you go to before you got to Chicago?
So I was at WICD in Champaign from 2002 as an employee through 2004. They were an NBC back then. They, became an ABC. They have now merged with WICS in Springfield. That is now, it used to be 2 separate stations. They are now just 1 station out of there. From there, I went to Milwaukee for a year. I was a news and sports reporter, mainly news. It was at WB18. They were part of Sinclair's News Central. It was, again, we talk about adversity and good and bad. That was part of it, learning a lot of things that I liked, I didn't like. So after that, being in Milwaukee, I then went to Asheville, North Carolina.
Right.
And that was a full sports job. So I took it. It was the farthest I'd ever been away from home. And it was incredible. I learned so much there. And
it's amazing when you travel because you now are doing the work. When you're young, you go do the work because you're not distracted by friends. You're meeting new people, right? Yeah. And that becomes your number one focus, where if you were in your hometown, it might not be.
No, and it wasn't. And I think I learned so much in Asheville. I wish, in retrospect, I appreciated it more. I love going back there. But I worked very hard there. I wanted to make my stay there a little bit quick. I've been fair to admit that. But I think that I grew. I found my love of storytelling, and I felt like that was where I was going to succeed, and that's where I found it. And then went to Indianapolis after that, where I was a sports reporter, I was an anchor, I was a photographer, a little bit of everything. Lots of ups and downs there for about 7.5 years, and then came to Chicago as a producer. That would have been March of 2015.
Yeah, so it takes you a while to get here, but think about what you learn as you're getting here, and I would much rather do that than get coffee for somebody for 5 years.
No,
and you've seen that. You've been in Chicago media, like breaking in, just trying to go straight from college into it is a miserable thing that I think it discourages a lot of people. You took a similar path to me, saying, I'm going to learn my craft, I'm going to go explore. And as my father told me, and you'll appreciate this, he was like, it's better to have your adventure when you're in your 20s than try to do it when you're in your 50s or 60s after you did all that work. I got to put the specs on because I have to do a commercial read, and I got to read it. I got to read it off. I got to read it off the phone.
Oh, you're all good.
All right, and I should know this one by heart. For exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high pressure sales, Larry. I was a window salesman at one point. Right after I got out of radio, I used to have to drag like these tiny windows that were examples around in the car and walk into people's living rooms, and it was uncomfortable for me. It was uncomfortable for them. And then I would always tell them, like, this is the deal, but if I walk out the door, I can't give you this price, which was a lie. But they do this. And who wants to be in that situation? Instead, go to Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest in their showroom, owner in the showroom, owner on site, everything in full color, no pictures in the books. And they've been doing it that way for 40 years in Oak Forest since 1985. All major brands are custom made with no stock items for a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest is a half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. And let's talk Chicago media, because I am so curious about this. Because I watch like the reporter pools, and I watch how they cover a team like the White Sox. Yeah. And I guess my first question for you is, what is it like covering a team in a big city that's different than covering a small town team or a college team?
Well, in some ways, it's the same principle. Now, when I was a producer and I was a reporter, I go out here and I go out there. It's really the same principles. It's you're trying to get the information. You're trying to, I guess for me, leave an impression that you're trying to work hard and you're trying to do those things. And I wasn't a beat reporter. And I have to distinguish myself. Those beat reporters work incredibly hard. For the radio stations, the newspapers, and for the on-air television, it's a very difficult job. I think in some ways the same principle is the same, but it's a whole lot different because there's a whole lot more people, there's a whole lot more eyeballs that are watching it. So certainly you're more in the crosshairs, and not in the crosshairs in a bad way. You're just there. People see you. That's why you work up. You want to get people a chance to see and hear your work. So it's a little bit different. It's not a little bit different. It's a lot different. But at the same point, for me, it was the same principles. Tell a good story. Tell an accurate story. For TV, when I would get a chance to do it, get good video. The fundamentals don't change, and they're not different, even if obviously a lot of things are different, because it is so much bigger. At least that's how I view it. Everyone who's in the media pool will view it differently. A beat writer for a Major League Baseball team that's covering 162 games, they view it differently. It's different for everybody. That's the experience that I had. When I was on the web, I was a lot of in-house and trying to find stuff and doing Zoom interviews or going out here and there. And for me, it was, just trying to do what I could to put the best product out there with what I had. Maybe it's a simple explanation. That's just how I always viewed it.
How hard is it, getting interviews in sports? I feel like it's almost harder now because I watch these exchanges sometimes where somebody doesn't like a question.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the reporter's a villain for asking like the right question, Mm-hmm. I mean, Mark DeRosa is still dancing around the fact that he thought that he'd already made it into the next round. And it's so obvious that he thought, look at his lineup. He puts in a Paul Goldschmidt, who's like, of all Major League Baseball players, 5th worst, I think, in OPS against right-handed pitching, and he starts him against a righty. Like, he benches a couple of big stars, and he's talking in the pregame that like some of these guys are suffering because they were out partying the night before. It really, and now he's trying to cover for it, and it's almost like, I don't know, maybe it's just a fan's perspective and I'm not in the room with the beat reporters, but it's almost like nobody wants to just keep trying to hammer him to get him because he's just dancing around it. How hard is that? Because you have relationships with these guys, but you also sometimes look at them and you go, you're full of it. How hard is that?
I think it is hard because I think you've, and it's something I focused a lot on later in my career was, how do I build trust with people? And, I wasn't going out every day, but even just trust, even if I would do an interview here or there, even in anything you do now. And I think that is hard. It's a hard balance to make. It's a hard thing to do. And I give a lot of these beat reporters credit. We've got to do it every day. And it's difficult. It's a difficult balance. And I think people have done that since the beginning of time. And you just find your way to do it. I don't think it's a case of where, somebody's weak or somebody's not wanting to do something. It's just different. And I think that you've just got to figure out what it is where that middle ground is. And people have done it more often than I did. But I think you try to find that. I remember in Indy when I was really going out there every day, I tried to find that. And in many ways I didn't succeed. And in some ways I did. It's a variable thing. It's a back and forth thing, and it's an everyday thing.
What do you think about this White Sox team? I mean, you're a sports fan. First of all, before you even get into them, how do you watch sports now? Is it different for you? I mean, you're a fan, but you covered it for so long. Have you started to find your fandom since you got out of covering things on a daily basis?
I find that sports are different to watch the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not as, when I was young, I was really into it. Everything, had all of it. Really into it in my 20s, covering it. Really intense, doing those things. For me, I watch, and I don't know if what people will think of this, I watch sports as theater. I'm interested in enjoying the experience, watching how things are going to play out. And yes, I think my time in media didn't make me a super hardcore of a fan, and maybe it took some of that away. It didn't mean I don't have passion for it. I just view it in a different way. I view it in storylines. Like, I always say, for instance, like when it came to the Bears losing to the Rams in the divisional round, yeah, it was bad the Bears lost, but what a beautiful game. Yeah. That Caleb Williams throw, and I have to do maybe a little more of is probably the second best play in a Chicago sports team's loss of all time. It might be the best. I've thought about it.
In any Chicago sports team's
I
loss.
have to look at it because for me, there's one that always stands out, and it's not for me, for the Cubs, Game 7, 2003, Kerry Wood's game-tying homer.
Okay.
I was outside the ballpark. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard. It was the release of so much tension that had built up because of what happened at the end of Game 6.
Yeah.
And I think it was a true release moment. It was something so unique in the history of Chicago sports that you really can't think of. There really is, for me,
Devin Hester's kickoff return to
was
start
number
the
one.
Super Bowl. Yeah.
Hester's is always number one.
I'm sitting here as you're talking thinking, what is number one?
Yeah, and number one was Hester's, because I've thought about this. Right after Caleb Williams, I really thought about it. Hester is probably number one. I think Kerry Wood, in my mind, now for Southside fans, it wouldn't be.
Of course not.
But with how the release of tension, that was incredible.
Right.
And for Wood, he hit it hard. I remember being outside the ballpark and caught the trajectory of the ball as it went out for the last 3 or 4 seconds. Hester's is number one, and I don't think there's anything of it. I've tried to think of others. I've tried to think of White Sox plays.
Well, for White Sox ones, I don't know if it's for an entire... for a game, it wouldn't be for a game, but it'd be for a series. The last time that they get into the postseason, Larry Garcia hits that 3-run home run, and I was in that ballpark, and I thought it was going to fall down, but they didn't win that series.
No.
It didn't really matter in the end.
I've thought about it for the White Sox. I reflected on the '83 series, and the '83 series is weird. I've always thought for performances in a loss. I think Britt Burns' pitching performance in Game 4 against the Orioles.
God, my father never stops talking about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it was the only thing he really did. I know that the Orioles got 3 that inning, and I'm remembering how many that were charged to him. But the Tito Landrum homer, that's what you think of painful moments in the history of Chicago sports in losses. I think the Landrum homer is really up there because that White Sox, that was the World Series. I think the White Sox beat the Phillies. That was the Phillies team that had their run in 1980. That was their year. They were aging a little bit in '83, and the Orioles took care of business. But it's a very interesting question. And if anybody has any others, because I've thought about it, but for me, it's Hester, it's Kerry Wood, and it's Caleb. I think it's Hester, Wood, 1, 2, and then it's Caleb. I think Caleb's 3, and I'm always happy to be corrected because I forget things.
Well, I'm putting Caleb 2 because I don't really care.
Because Sox fans would, but Sox fans would.
I was rooting openly for the Marlins in that series.
Oh, yeah, and the Marlins made
Yeah.
It's kind of funny in looking back on it when you reflect on it, just how good that Marlins team really was.
I will tell you a true story, and then we'll get back on the Sox a little bit more here. I'm sitting in a bar, El Chula's, on Illinois Street downtown at River North, and my uncle's sitting next to me, and the two of us are watching this game. Neither one of us are Cubs fans. And the moment that kid reached out, Bartman, and interferes with the ball. Remember, they're still up by multiple runs, and we both started laughing at the bar, going, "Watch the Marlins come back and win this whole thing, and they're going to blame that poor guy." And we made that joke right there in the bar as Sox fans. Basically saying, this is how it goes for the Cubs, and they'll blame this poor kid out there and that's exactly what happened.
And it's funny because I was outside the ballpark and they started chanting the word that everybody talks about. And somebody told me about it, and I said, you know what I said? I said, who cares? Because it happened, it was either Paul Baca or Damian Miller in one of the first 2 games. Went up there and a fan knocked it out. I think it was in Game 2 where the Cubs won big. The thing that stunned me was so my dad left, because we were on Waveland, we didn't see it. My dad left the tape of Game 6 for me to watch it. I didn't know about Gonzalez. We just heard a gasp. That was the play for me. And
that was the play.
And Galvin Gonzalez was so good for the Cubs that year. It was his worst play.
Yeah.
That's what got me.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this Sox team, I think they're going to be exciting this year. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I like what Chris Getz is doing. Like, it's almost like he understands who his owner is. I feel like the last group, they just kept thinking at some point Jerry would just spend the money that he was never going to spend. And this guy understands who his owner is. So he's got the assistant general manager from Tampa Bay, and he goes out and gets guys from outside the organization who know how to build with lower budgets. And he fixes some facilities up, and he changes his scouting department. He changes his international scouting. And now he's got this core, but different from the last time that they tried to build the core, there's guys behind guys behind guys. Yeah. And it seems that's how it's built. What do you think of this White Sox team right now?
And I think maybe they're doing better, because remember when Rick Hahn, when they were building in 17, 18, 19, was talking about depth.
There was none.
It didn't pan out. It didn't pan out. When that first line went there and they struggled, there wasn't that next line. And I think that there's some good things that they're building up. I like the fact that they're building up facilities, and I think that was needed. There were things that were missing. And I think Getz is doing that, and I think he's going to take a lot of arrows until they do win. It feels like that there's just, I don't really understand why, because I think there was a lot of things I liked about the Sox previous rebuild, but they didn't work out. It's like, all right, you're doing all these right things, and then it doesn't work. Moncada never really reached his potential. Jimenez never really reached his potential.
That injury he took, that changed everything, It
changed, and nobody really ever developed. I mean, there wasn't that pitching depth in there that was there that we were looking for. It just never came together. Like you were just looking for it.
It was as if the plan was, if all 9 of these guys play well and everybody pitches well, we're good. But if any holes happen, there's nothing behind them. And that's what I think is the difference. I mean, you have Chase Meidroth right now, who's likely going to be your opening day second baseman. But you could debate, should he be the opening day second baseman after I've just watched Sam Antonacci do everything in his power to show he should be in the major leagues, but he's not on the 40-man, and they've got a bunch of guys out of options. So they're going to start the season and give everybody a month or two to kind of sort things out here. And it's going to be a very different roster by July, I think. Yeah,
and I just feel good about what they did. I think that their improvement from 24 to 25 was really good. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. I think it ended up about a 20-game improvement.
Yeah.
And you're there, and I like Venables as a manager, so I think that they've got a lot of things going. But I think you're right in that perspective, and it just feels like maybe they're doing it right this time. And again, it's only time, Enya's always right. It's, only time. Who can say only time? But I do like the fact that Getz is doing some things. I like, Murakami. I like the fact that they went out there and got a really solid player. I like Colson Montgomery a lot. I'm curious.
I'm worried about him. He's hitting under 200 in spring right now.
It is, and I think that's going to be up and down. I do kind of wonder, part of me wonders who's the face going to be. And is the face of the franchise here yet? It's just, that's where I think it's going to be.
I think the face of the franchise just took a 4 to 6 week injury with a hamstring. Because Kyle Teel, he seems like the man.
Yeah.
And that's the most interesting thing with those two catchers. One guy is vocal, fun. You hear all these great stories about him, plays really hard. The other guy, Caro, he's a solid ball player as well. And it's funny when you talk to the older guys, when I talk to my father's generation, they're like, that's Carlton Fisk out there. He looks like the commander when he stands out there. That's a really great problem to have two of them right now. And they may be the face of the team. Those two guys may be if we're going to find a face of the team, they're going to be in the running at least.
And it would be a great thing if that was the case because of what they gave up to get, with the Crochet deal and how they had to do, and getting Kyle Teel. I think I even saw reports the Red Sox tried to get him back.
Oh, well, yeah, that was the funniest thing.
It was kind of fun. I'm like,
all the Red Sox fans and thinking they're going to get back Kyle Teel. They traded Brady Montgomery, who's going to get here halfway through the year and be good. All right, I mean he may be the jewel of the 3-player trade. We haven't even seen him yet. Okay, then you get Teel, then you got Meidroth. I mean, I think in the end, Chase Meidroth, he could take a step this year, but he may be a guy who's a utility infielder on a team that's challenging in the playoffs every year, and I would take that, right? But Teel looks like he's an everyday star catcher. It's going to be one of the best in the majors. And then you also have this Montgomery. That's a great trade long term if it works out that way.
Yeah, and it's, again, these are solid deals you make, and if they can develop them, and it seems like they've taken steps to try to do that and develop them better, all of a sudden you're talking like, I mean, what's your high in the pie hope this year? Maybe
I got 75 wins, but if they made it to 800, or if they made it to 500, 800. They made it to 500. I was thinking 81 81 and 81 there, and I slipped.
Yeah,
if they make it to 500, I'd be pumped.
Will's probably a manager of the year candidate if they do that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're probably, now with especially having more, you're probably sniffing a playoff spot. I think
that's the thing with all these extra playoffs.
Yeah, you can be in the playoffs for a really long time. You can be there and you can be talking about it, longer than you usually would think.
Well, you know what I would love hosting this show is that when I get to August, I'm able to start talking about we're this many games out of the last spot. Mm-hmm. And I can actually legitimately say we're this many games out of the last spot, and look at who just showed up. Hagen Smith just made it here. Yep. Look who just showed up. Brady Montgomery's been here for a couple of weeks. Drew Thorpe is going to finally get back into the rotation. Like at this rotation, there may only be Shane Smith and 4 different faces by the end of the year in it. And so that's what I'm looking for. If they can be good enough in the first half of the season that the second half counts a little bit, even if they don't make it, that would be a great season for me.
And you keep the energy going through August. You do that. I mean, I don't know if they're in a position where they'd start trading to win now, but like you don't.
No, I don't think they do any trading.
I don't think they would do anything like that. But it would be nice to see that. Is that impossible? I don't think so. Baseball, you can have quick turns, but I think if they can approach, kind of like you said, get in like 75 wins, get into the 70s. And just solidly do that. And if you see, if you see like Montgomery, you see some of those guys coming up there, I think if you can do that, I don't think that's out of the question.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it. Because again, I thought they made some good strides last year late in the season. And it's usually like all season long. And I think that could be something that you look to. And I kind of agree with you. It just feels like a little bit more solid now. And again, maybe that trust wasn't there because, Han had all those years before they got to the rebuild. So maybe even though you liked what they did, it was still a little bit on shaky ground. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah. Larry Hawley, he's a heck of a guy. He's nice enough to sit here and have a drink with me at Cork and Kerry at the park. And I don't want you to be a stranger. I want to hang out again sometime.
Anytime, man.
That'd be awesome. What are you doing now so people know to check it out?
So I work. I do marketing for Ankin Law.
Okay.
So I run a lot of their social medias. So give us a follow, AnkinLaw.com. We do a lot of legal advice, but we also are continuing our Chicagoans You Should Know segment, which is a feature segment on people who are from the city, from the area, or right now are in the city doing some big things. Our last athlete for the White Sox was Nicky Lopez. We're hoping to get somebody else from the Sox here coming up. But follow us along. We appreciate we give a lot of things on our social media. I'm really trying to grow it and also grow kind of our storytelling side, which was started before I got there. So I still do it. I also do on my own social sports of a certain age. I mentioned it to you. Sports are different for me now. So I try to do not only like day of news stuff, but I also like to do perspective things like what I remember, what I like, and also trying to be open. I'm hoping to start a podcast where I'll talk to people about that, but also talk to young and up-and-coming journalists, creators in our space that are doing great things because so many people helped me when I was in broadcasting, and I hope I could kind of do the same a little bit for them. I don't have all the super standing, but that's what I'm hoping, give back to so many and give back to a profession that did so much for my life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Cheers.
That music means the SoxNerd joins us as he does each and every week. Dave Marin puts all those interesting tidbits and nuggets up on the scoreboard at the rate during every home game and also joins us each and every week on Sox in the Basement, brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. Check out the new Lamont Unlocked podcast hosted by yours truly, where you get to go all around Lamont and explore and eat all of their food and drink all of their beer. It's a great job. It's a great life. See it all at LamontDowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Chris, let's take a deep dive into Shane Smith's assignment as the White Sox opening day starting pitcher. I pointed out on last week's pod that Shane will be the first pitcher named Smith to start for the Sox on opening day since Eddie did it in 1940. What I didn't point out was that 1940 was the year Cleveland's rapid Robert Feller fashioned the only opening day no-hitter in big league history. Eddie Smith was the tough luck loser in that 1-0 decision at Comiskey Park. Frank was the other Smith pitcher to start on opening day for the Sox. He went in 1909, 1905, and in 1910 when he threw the only opening day one-hitter in Sox history. Enough about the most popular last name in the Western Hemisphere. Shane Smith will be the second Sox Rule 5 selection to start on opening day on the mound. The first was Reb Russell, who took the loss in the 1916 premiere. Russell, who was born on this date in 1889, by the way, was taken by the Sox from the Fort Worth Panthers in the 1912 Rule 5 draft. A special thanks to Baseball Reference for that one. Smith will be the first White Sox pitcher to start on opening day against his former organization since James Shields took on the Royals in the 2018 premiere. Smith will join Jamie Navarro as the only pitchers originally signed by the Brewers, the Sox opening day foe, to start on opening day for the White Sox. Navarro started for the Sox in 1997 and 1998. Speaking of the Brewers, Smith made one start against Milwaukee last season. He received no decision after giving up 1 earned run on 6 hits with 3 walks and 4 strikeouts in a 5-4 loss on April 30th in Chicago. Smith made 5 stops while spending the first 4 seasons of his pro career in the Brewers minor league system. At one time, he was teammates with Jacob Mizorowski, Carlos Rodriguez, and Aaron Ashby, whom Smith could be opposing on opening day. All those pitchers have been mentioned as possible first-game starters for the crew. This won't be Smith's first opening day appearance. The righty earned the win in his collegiate debut by fanning 2 in a perfect ninth in Wake Forest's 4-3 opening day walk-off victory over Seton Hall in 2020. 3 years later, Smith notched the win in his high A debut by escaping a 1-out bases-loaded jam in the 9th inning in firing 1 2/3 shutout frames in Carolina's 5-3 opening day win at Fayetteville. In 2024, Smith got another opening day W with 1 strikeout and a perfect 9th inning in AA Biloxi's 8-7 opening day walk-off triumph of Montgomery. All told, Smith is 3-0 while allowing only 1 base runner in 3 2/3 innings on opening day. Some quick hitters. This will be the 4th consecutive season a White Sox pitcher will be making his first career opening day start, with Burke, Crochet, and Cease the others. The last pitcher with an opening day start to start on opening day for the White Sox was Lucas Giolito in 2022. Coupled with Burke, this will be the 2nd consecutive year the Sox will start a second-year pitcher on opening day. Smith will be the first opening day starter to wear number 64 for the White Sox. Reliever Davy Garcia, remember him, is the only 64 to appear in an opener for the Sox. He did that in 2024. Smith will be the first undrafted free agent to start on opening day for the White Sox since Jose Quintana in 2017. Quintana was signed by the Mets out of Columbia in 2006. That's Columbia the country, not the Chicago college where so many of my talented colleagues in the scoreboard room matriculated. On an unrelated note, the hamstring injury to Kyle Teel in the World Baseball Classic prompted me to revisit an old Bill Veeck quote. In his book, Veeck as in Wreck, Barnum Bill said, quote, "If there's any justice in this world, to be a White Sox fan frees a man from any other form of penance." Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you that gems like these and others are available on my blog, which you can access at soxinthebasement.com, and I am also posting daily on X and Threads. My zinger. Marquette, my alma mater and the only team I let give me grief other than the White Sox, lost its 20th game with a season-ending setback to Xavier in the Big East tournament on Wednesday. This was Marquette's first 20-game loser since 1964. The White Sox last 20-game loser happened 11 years later when the great Wilbur Wood lost exactly 20 games. Both Wilbur and Marquette own a pair of 20-loss campaigns. That's it, Chris. Probably more than you wanted to know about opening day starters, ancient Rule 5ers, and rotten Marquette basketball teams.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.